Do you remember the first game you ever played twice? You finished the final boss after an infinite amount of attempts, put down the controller, set aside your keyboard, and decided, yeah, I want to do that again. Your frustrations were outweighed by your triumph, and the brief high that accompanied that triumph was like nothing you've ever experienced before. Maybe it was a Nintendo 64 game of Donkey Kong. Maybe you tore through the streets acting out your criminal fantasies in Grand Theft Auto on the PlayStation 2, or your very first Xbox 360 playthrough of Need for Speed. In modern times, single-player games with replayability are limited. Instead, there are hundreds of multiplayer games of every variety and style. So does the urge to replay still apply if the game is never really done? With titles like Call of Duty, there's a new game each year with fresh locations, weapons, and camos to pique your interest and grab another dollar. With the ever-popular Battle Royale games like Apex Legends, Fortnite, and PUBG, they all took a different approach. Instead of buying the game, it's just given to you. The trade-off being, of course, that there are few in-game items that can be earned in old-school grinding and leveling up using skill or sheer time. It isn't exactly pay to win, but the fear of being laughed off the game because of stock skins and starter packs is ever present. In the end, the argument could be made that a game studio can make more money off of a free-to-play game than making a new game every year and charging upwards of $80 for it. You only need to look at the profit graph for Fortnite to see the best example of successful microtransactions. There is, of course, one major key difference in gameplay between the two types of games. Competitive play. In Call of Duty, you have the option to buy the latest camo and characters, but it doesn't affect your play. The draw for players is the possibility of going pro. Little Timmy picks up a controller at 7 years old after watching his favorite YouTuber and thinks maybe one day he could possess the same skill as the greats he watches on YouTube and Twitch. Theoretically, that's true. If he puts in the time, hones in on those skills, and learns from those that come before him, maybe he can make it. Conversely, if a full-grown man decides today is the day he wants to begin playing video games, he can still put in the time and use judgment only an adult would possess to help that process. It could work. The one exception to that rule is Fortnite. Pros in the field currently young and old all have one thing in common. They've been playing essentially since the game began. The game itself was a relatively new concept at the time of release, with classic elements of a battle royale and unseen elements like its building mechanic and unique style of animation. Frequent updates and the overall fresh feeling of the game made it an instant hit, with its popularity booming to the behemoth we know today in very little time at all. With the newfound popularity of the game, there were so many changes and updates that within a year, it hardly resembled the original game at all, while keeping its charm. Some of the biggest names in gaming today found unparalleled success in content creation and the beginning of a competitive scene in Fortnite. Careers were catapulted into success with levels never before seen for creators like Typical Gamer, Cypher PK, Courage JD, Nick A30, and of course, Ninja, to rule over them all. Everything was going well for the game and creators alike, and then well turned into amazing, until it wasn't. Popularity began to dip, the competitive scene following the massive World Cup began to see its first ever decline. But why? Why would something so popular and industry-changing begin to fail so rapidly? Fingers can be pointed in any number of directions, but the ultimate reason is clear. New players coming into the game cannot, and will not, be able to enter the competitive arena.
Competitive Fortnite is in trouble.
I'm not quite sure what it would take for them to come back permanently.
This is pretty much challenging the current state of the pro scene. If Booga is getting dropped from his competitive Fortnite org, there really is no hope for the future of Fortnite competitive.
Well, that's because no one watches Fortnite anymore.
With the introduction of Zero Build, there was a noticeable shift in player base. After a dip, there was a surge of new and returning players. It was good news for Fortnite, Epic, content creators, advertisers, and everyone else you can think of, except for competitive players. Despite the influx of new players, updates, and positive game changes, there weren't many new people to enter into the competitive space. As it turned out, the very reason for the game gaining popularity, its building mechanic, is the very reason it can't go any further. The game, no matter how many cosmetic changes and collabs are made, cannot grow. New players loading in love the style, the weapons, the collabs, and zero build, while more seasoned players are beginning to grow bored and move on to other games, understandably so. The problem is, the vast majority of competitive play is in build mode. To even be considered to play in low-level tournaments and cups, you have to enter into an arena mode and score huge points to level up and reach, at a minimum, Champions League. This requires learning a completely new mechanic, all while competing against people who have been perfecting the craft for over 5 years. With no ability to respawn, minus the occasional reboot if you're with the team, there is no chance to die and try again several times in a row for a 20-minute game. You enter the game, die quickly to a seasoned player, and wait another 10 minutes to load in and try again. Rinse and repeat. That is how you enter the competitive space of Fortnite. There is no chance to get your bearings or practice in any meaningful way. But surely Epic anticipated this being an issue and has a plan for making a zero-build version of Arena, this being a benefit for new players and players who like the game but dislike building, right?
No, probably not.
There isn't. There was never a plan. With there being a divide between console players and PC players, new players and old, wouldn't you think there would at least be a little less divide between build and no build?
Well, now let me see.
No. If anything, it's an even greater divide. The truth is, it doesn't matter how many flashy collabs are done, how many map updates, weapon upgrades, and even a new version of creative entering the game. New players cannot become legitimate competitive players. As we all watch Fortnite go into a free fall of player base, viewers, and enjoyers, Epic has to know and be aware. The only solution is to make a zero-build arena and treat new players with the respect and dignity they deserve.